Hello everyone, my name is Emily and I'm a master gardener, and I am here today to talk to you a little bit about vegetable garden planning. All of you have a very good resource right now to help you with your vegetable garden planning, and that is in your Seed to Supper book, and it is the Common Crop Chart. And on this chart there's going to be a lot of answers to your questions that come up when you're planning your garden. One of the questions you might have is, what can I grow here in the Pacific Northwest? And this is a pretty good list of them right here to start with. Another question might be, well, when can I plant it? Can I only plant it in the spring, or can I plant this in the summer too? And this will give you a good idea about that. And then the next column is a really important piece of information, which is how much space does the plant take up, or does the row of plants take up? But one thing that I'd like to talk to you about really briefly before we go outside is, in answering that question, what is it that I want to plant? Because all of us have in our various gardens, different amounts of space, and that space is kind of like a precious resource. What am I going to put in this precious resource to plant? And that really has to do with what you value, I think. Maybe you want to plant things that you can't typically find out in the grocery store or at the farmer's market. Or maybe you want to plant things that are really expensive to buy organically. Or whatever your reason is, maybe you have something that is special in your family, or something that you want to share with your children specifically, and you want to plant that. But because we all have limited space, I think it's good to take a little bit of time to think about, what do I really want to plant? And that's also helpful in the other stages that come next, because if you have plants in the ground that you really care about, then you're more likely to weed them and feed them and water them and harvest them and have that motivation to see this process all the way through to the end and be successful. So I will meet you outside now in just a moment and do a little hands-on demonstration about garden planning. Here we are out in the garden, and I have a space which is about 10 feet by 4 feet for us to play with today. And you are going to do this on graph paper, but I'm going to do essentially the same thing that you're going to do on graph paper, but out here in the garden. So here is my spring garden, and let me explain it to you. Also notice that I'm planning with a measuring tape, and now I also plant with a measuring tape because it really helps to get oneself to be honest about how much space things take if you're actually measuring it out as you go. What I wanted to plant in my spring garden was broccoli and cabbage and cauliflower. Now all of these guys take about 12 to 18 inches from the center point to the center point. And so we have these big circles kind of representing how big they'll be when they grow up. But when we plant them, transplant them in, they'll just be these little guys, and they'll look like they have a whole bunch of space around them. But when they get big, they'll have this bigger sort of a footprint. Now the next thing I wanted to plant was some lettuce. And so I direct sowed a line of lettuce right here, and it doesn't take as much space. And so I've got about 6 inches on either side with my row of lettuce. Then I wanted to plant 2 kale plants right here, and because these kale plants are going to be here for most of the season, I wanted to give them plenty of space. And then right here I planted a row of cilantro, which, kind of like the lettuce, doesn't take near as much space. Now I want to say a quick word about succession gardening. One, that you don't plant a whole bunch of one thing at the same time, but thinking about, well, when this comes out, what can I replace it with? Or how much lettuce and cilantro do I need at one time? Should I plant a whole bed of it? No. Or should I just plant one row and then a little bit later plant another row somewhere else? Or plant a row where something else comes out? So now I'm going to move on to my summer garden, and you see I do have a little bit of room left for that. So here in my summer garden, I decided to plant 2 tomatoes, which they have a very big footprint. They need about a whole yard or 36 inches between them. And so I have these 2 here. Then I'm going to have a little row of bush beans, and then I have some peppers here, which only need to be more like a foot apart from center to center. And so that completes my spring and summer garden planning for this little bit of bed. And I would say have fun with it.